Strolling through 15th century Venice. Chapter 1. A foggy morning among the canals. You wake slowly, gently, to the soft lapping of water against stone. The sound is rhythmic, peaceful, like a mother's heartbeat in the womb of the world. Your eyes flutter open in the dim, pre-dawn light of Venice. The year is 1473, and you are a wandering bookseller in this floating city of dreams. The fog, thick as spun silk, drifts through your small window overlooking the Rio di San Polo. You breathe deeply, inhaling the salt-sweet scent of the lagoon, mixed with the earthy aroma of damp stone and the faintest hint of cinnamon from a spice merchant's warehouse nearby. Your room is simple, humble, yet filled with treasures. Leather-bound volumes line wooden shelves that your landlord, a kind glassmaker from Murano, crafted with his own weathered hands. The books smell of parchment and ink, of distant monasteries and copying chambers where monks labored by candlelight to preserve the wisdom of ages. You stretch beneath your woolen blanket, feeling the soft texture against your skin. The wool came from sheep in the Veneto countryside, where shepherds still sing ancient songs while watching their flocks. The weaving was done by women in Torcello, their fingers swift and sure as they worked the threads into patterns that would keep you warm through Venice's damp winters. Rising slowly, you place your feet on the cool stone floor. The stones beneath your dwelling came from the quarries of Istria, across the Adriatic Sea, carried by merchant ships that navigated by stars and prayer. Each stone was cut by master craftsmen, fitted perfectly by builders who understood that Venice must be built to last, to float forever on her foundation of wooden piles driven deep into the mud of the lagoon. You move to your wash basin, a simple ceramic piece painted with blue flowers, created in the workshops of Faenza, where potters have perfected their craft for generations. The water is cool, refreshing, as you splash it gently on your face. The water itself traveled from the mainland, carried in wooden barrels by boats that make this journey every day, ensuring that Venice, though surrounded by salt water, never thirsts for fresh. Your clothes await you, folded carefully on a wooden chest. The tunic is made of wool, dyed with madder root, giving it a deep red-brown color that speaks of warmth and reliability. The madder came from fields in Flanders, traded by merchants who understand that color is as valuable as gold in a world where beauty and status walk hand in hand. Your hose are knitted from fine yarn, needles clicking in the hands of a widow in Cannaregio who finds solace in the rhythm of her craft. As you dress, you think of the books waiting in your leather satchel. Today, you carry volumes that represent the flowering of human knowledge, manuscripts copied from ancient Greek texts that survived the fall of Constantinople, their wisdom preserved by scholars who fled westward, carrying civilization in their hands and hearts. One volume contains the works of Plato, translated by the brilliant Marsilio Ficino in Florence, the pages still crisp with newness. Another holds the poetry of Virgil, copied by a monk in Padua, whose Latin script flows like music across the parchment. A third contains the mathematical insights of Fibonacci, the great Pisan who brought Arabic numerals to Europe, and change the way merchants calculate their profits and losses. You step carefully down the narrow wooden stairs, each step worn smooth by countless feet before yours. The wood creaks gently, a familiar song that greets you each morning. Your landlord's family has lived in this building for 3 generations, each adding their own improvements, their own touches of beauty, to this home that houses dreams and ambitions. The door opens to reveal Venice in her morning glory, wrapped in fog like a bride in lace. The narrow calle, barely wide enough for 2 people to pass, stretches before you like a pathway to mystery. The stones beneath your leather shoes are damp with dew and mist, slippery but familiar. You have walked these streets for 3 years now, since you arrived from Padua, with nothing but your love of books and your determination to share knowledge with those who hunger for it. The fog muffles all sound, creating a world of whispers and shadows. You hear the distant call of a gondolier, his voice echoing off the canal walls as he navigates by memory and instinct through waterways he has known since childhood. The sound is musical, rhythmic, a chant that speaks of generations of men who have made their living from these waters. You turn toward the canal, your footsteps echoing softly in the narrow passageway between buildings. The architecture here tells the story of Venice's rise from muddy islands to maritime empire. Gothic arches frame doorways, their pointed elegance speaking of the city's connections to the east, to Byzantium, and the trade routes that brought silk and spices to European tables. The windows above you are shuttered against the morning mist, but behind them, families are stirring. Children are waking in beds warmed by their siblings. Mothers are lighting fires in hearths that will cook the day's meals. Fathers are preparing for another day of work that keeps this impossible city alive and thriving. You pause at the edge of the Rio de San Paulo, watching the water flow slowly toward the Grand Canal. The current is gentle here, almost imperceptible, but it carries the essence of Venice, connecting every corner of the city to the great lagoon that cradles her like a mother's arms. A small fishing boat emerges from the fog, its occupant bent over his nets. The fisherman has been awake since before dawn, checking his traps in the shallow waters where fish come to feed on the algae and small creatures that thrive in this brackish mix of fresh and salt water. His catch will feed families throughout the city, continuing a tradition that stretches back to the earliest settlers who came to these marshlands seeking refuge from barbarian invasions. The fisherman nods to you, recognizing a fellow early riser. His face is weathered by sun and salt, marked by years of patient labor. His boat is painted blue, the color of the Virgin Mary's robes, a protection against the dangers of the water. The paint was mixed with lapis lazuli, that precious stone brought from the mountains of Afghanistan by traders who traveled the Silk Road. Carrying beauty across continents, you continue along the fondamenta, the walkway that borders the canal. The stones here are different from those in the calle, larger and more carefully fitted, designed to withstand the constant lapping of water and the weight of cargo being loaded and unloaded from boats. The stone came from the same Istrian quarries, but these blocks were chosen for their resistance to salt and moisture, their ability to endure. Your satchel, made of leather tanned in the workshops of Santa Croce, rests comfortably against your hip. The tanning process used oak bark gathered from forests on the mainland, where trees grow tall and strong in soil enriched by centuries of fallen leaves. The leather was worked by craftsmen whose fathers and grandfathers perfected techniques brought from Cordova, where Spanish leatherworkers learned their art from Moorish masters. Inside your satchel, the books rest safely, wrapped in silk cloth. The silk was woven in Lucca, that Tuscan city where merchants learned the secrets of silk production from Byzantine refugees. The threads shimmer even in the dim light, their surface smooth as water, their strength greater than iron. Each book is protected, cradled, ready to share its treasures with readers who appreciate the miracle of preserved knowledge. The fog begins to thin slightly, revealing more of the canal's beauty. Across the water, you can see the outline of a palazzo. Its Gothic facade decorated with trefoils and quatrefoils that catch and hold the diffused light. The palazzo was built by a merchant family whose wealth came from trading with Alexandria, bringing pepper and cinnamon to Venetian tables and taking woolen cloth and silver coins back to Egyptian markets. The building's foundation rests on thousands of wooden piles, each one driven deep into the clay and sand of the lagoon floor. The wood came from the forests of Cadore, high in the Alps, where larch and oak grow straight and strong. The piles were selected carefully, aged in salt water until they became hard as stone, then driven into place by teams of workers who understood that Venice's future depended on the strength of these underwater forests. You walk slowly, savoring the peace of this early hour. Your footsteps create a gentle rhythm on the stone, a percussion that blends with the soft sounds of water and the distant awakening of the city. Each step carries you deeper into the maze of canals and bridges that make Venice unique among all the cities of the world. A cat appears from a shadowed doorway, its fur dampened by the mist, but its eyes bright with intelligence. Cats are valued in Venice, not just as companions, but as guardians of the grain stores and warehouses where rats might otherwise feast on precious cargo. This cat, sleek and well-fed, belongs to a baker whose ovens are already warming for the day's first loaves of bread. The cat follows you for a few steps, then disappears into another shadow. Its presence reminds you that Venice is not just a city of merchants and nobles, but a place where all creatures find their role, their purpose, their place in the great symphony of urban life. You turn into an even narrower calle, one barely wide enough for your shoulders. Here the fog seems thicker, more intimate. The buildings rise high on either side, their upper stories leaning slightly toward each other, as if sharing secrets across the narrow space. These upper floors house workshops where artisans create the goods that make Venice famous throughout Europe. Above you, shutters open quietly, and you glimpse a woman hanging laundry from a window box filled with herbs. Basil grows there, its leaves dark green and fragrant even in the cool morning air. The basil came originally from India, carried along trade routes that connected Venice to the farthest reaches of the known world. Now it grows in Venetian gardens, its seeds saved and shared by women who understand the value of flavor and medicine. The laundry, simple linen shifts and woolen hose will dry slowly in this humid air. The linen was woven in Flanders, that distant land where fields of flax grow under gray skies. Flemish weavers, renowned for their skill, created cloth so fine it feels like silk against the skin. The woman handling it now, hanging it with careful precision, is part of the endless cycle of care that keeps families clothed and comfortable. You emerge from the calle onto a slightly wider street, one that leads toward the Rialto. Even at this early hour, you can sense the energy building there, the anticipation of another day of trade and commerce that keeps Venice prosperous. But for now, in this peaceful moment, the city belongs to early risers like yourself, people who appreciate the quiet beauty of morning. A church bell chimes somewhere in the distance, its bronze voice calling the faithful to morning prayers. The bell was cast in the foundries of Bassano, where craftsmen understand the alchemy of tin and copper that creates bronze capable of singing across water and stone. The sound carries farther in the fog, amplified and softened by the mist, until it becomes part of the morning's music. You adjust your satchel and continue walking, each step carrying you deeper into your day's journey. The books inside your bag represent more than just written words. They are repositories of human dreams and discoveries, thoughts that traveled from ancient Greece and Rome, through the scriptoriums of medieval monasteries, into the hands of Renaissance scholars who saw in old wisdom the seeds of new understanding. One book contains the architectural theories of Vitruvius, the Roman engineer whose ideas about proportion and beauty influence the builders who are even now raising new palazzi along the Grand Canal. Another holds the natural observations of Pliny the Elder, whose curiosity about the world around him led him to document everything from the properties of precious stones to the behavior of dolphins in the Mediterranean. A third volume, one you particularly treasure, contains the poems of Petrarch, whose love for Laura inspired verses that capture the beauty and pain of human longing. The words were copied by a young monk in Bologna, his careful script preserving for future generations the thoughts of a man who understood that love and language are the twin pillars supporting the human spirit. The fog swirls around you as you walk, sometimes thickening until you can barely see the stones beneath your feet, sometimes thinning to reveal glimpses of canal or bridge or the decorated facade of a merchant's home. The mist carries scents, salt and stone, herbs and spices, the faint aroma of bread baking in distant ovens, the green smell of algae growing in quiet corners where sunlight rarely penetrates. You pass a small campo, a neighborhood square where a well provides fresh water for the surrounding buildings. The wellhead is carved from Istrian stone, decorated with the Lion of St. Mark that symbolizes Venice's power and independence. The well itself reaches deep into the ground, where sand and gravel filter rainwater collected from rooftops and courtyards, providing the clean water that keeps plague and disease at bay. A woman emerges from a nearby house, her wooden clogs echoing on the stone as she approaches the well. Her dress is simple but well made, the wool dyed with weld and madder to create a warm brown that speaks of earth and stability. She carries a ceramic jug, glazed with a pattern of leaves and flowers that shows the influence of Islamic pottery brought to Venice by traders who sailed to Alexandria and Damascus. The woman nods to you politely, acknowledging your presence without curiosity or suspicion. In Venice, strangers are part of daily life. Travelers from distant lands come to buy and sell, scholars seeking rare manuscripts, pilgrims on their way to the Holy Land. Your books mark you as a man of learning, worthy of respect, even if your purse is lighter than those of the great merchants. She draws water from the well, the rope and bucket moving smoothly through their ancient dance. The water sparkles even in the dim light, pure and cool from its underground journey through layers of sand and clay. This water, filtered by earth and time, connects every Venetian to the larger world, to rain that fell on mountains and fields, to clouds that gathered over distant seas, to the great cycle of evaporation and precipitation that sustains all life. You continue past the well, leaving the woman to her morning routine. The fog grows thinner as you approach the Grand Canal, that great waterway that serves as Venice's main street and commercial highway. Even muffled by mist, you can hear the sounds of increasing activity. Gondoliers calling to each other, merchants shouting orders, the creak and splash of oars cutting through water. But for now, in this peaceful moment between night and day, you savor the quiet beauty of Venice awakening slowly from her dreams. The fog wraps around you like a gentle blanket, muffling sharp edges, softening harsh corners, creating a world where everything is possible and nothing is quite what it seems. Your breathing matches the rhythm of your walking, slow and steady, each inhalation bringing the sense of the city, each exhalation releasing the tensions of yesterday and tomorrow. You exist fully in this moment, in this step, in this heartbeat, connected to the ancient stones beneath your feet and the sky above your head. The books in your satchel seem lighter now, as if they too appreciate this quiet time before the bustle of commerce begins. They carry within their pages the thoughts of men and women who lived centuries ago, who faced the same questions about life and death and meaning that occupy thinking people in every age. Their wisdom, preserved in ink and parchment, travels with you through these misty streets, ready to find new readers, new minds to illuminate and inspire. A small bridge appears through the fog, its single arch spanning a narrow canal. The bridge is ancient, built when Venice was still more marsh than city, its stones worn smooth by countless feet. You climb the gentle slope, your hand trailing along the stone balustrade that some master carver decorated with simple but elegant scrollwork. From the center of the bridge, you pause to look down at the water below. The canal is narrow here, intimate, lined with houses whose foundations disappear into the dark water. Boats are moored along the canal banks, their owners still sleeping in beds warmed by woolen blankets and family affection. The boats themselves tell stories. Fishing vessels with nets drying on their sides, cargo boats designed to carry grain and wine and olive oil, private gondolas decorated with brass fittings that gleam even in the diffused light. Constabella. The water moves slowly, carrying leaves and small pieces of wood toward the Grand Canal and eventually to the sea. On its surface, the fog creates patterns, swirling and eddying like cream poured into dark coffee. The surface reflects what little light penetrates the mist, creating a world of silver and gray, of soft shadows and gentle mysteries. You descend the far side of the bridge, each step taking you deeper into the labyrinth of calli and campi that make up this floating city. Here, every turn might reveal a hidden courtyard, a forgotten shrine, a workshop where craftsmen create objects of beauty and utility. the fog makes every familiar place seem new, every known path an adventure. The sound of your footsteps echoes softly off the walls of the buildings, creating a gentle percussion that blends with the morning's quiet symphony. Water laps against stone, fog droplets fall from shutters and roof tiles. Cats pad silently along their mysterious errands. Church bells toll the hours in bronze voices that carry across water and stone. Your satchel, containing those precious books, moves gently against your side with each step. The leather is supple from years of use, the straps worn smooth by your hands. Inside, wrapped in silk that shimmers even in the dim light, your books wait patiently for the readers who will give them new life, new purpose, new understanding. The sound of your footsteps echoes softly off the walls of the buildings, creating a gentle percussion that blends with the morning's quiet symphony. Water laps against stone, fog droplets fall from shutters and roof tiles. Cats pad silently along their mysterious errands. Church bells toll the hours in bronze voices that carry across water and stone. Your satchel, containing those precious books, moves gently against your side with each step. The leather is supple from years of use, the straps worn smooth by your hands. Inside, wrapped in silk that shimmers even in the dim light, your books wait patiently for the readers who will give them new life, new purpose, new understanding. One volume contains the medical writings of Avicenna, the great Persian physician whose understanding of disease and healing bridged the wisdom of ancient Greece with the discoveries of Islamic scholars. His words, translated from Arabic into Latin by scholars in Cordoba and Toledo, carry healing knowledge across centuries and continents, ready to ease suffering wherever understanding finds willing minds. Another book holds the mathematical innovations of Fibonacci, the Pisan merchant's son who learned the secrets of numbers from Arab teachers in North Africa. His Liber Abaci, with its revolutionary system of calculation, is changing the way European merchants conduct business, making possible the complex accounting that supports Venice's far-flung commercial empire. A third volume, worn soft by many hands, contains the Aeneid of Virgil, that epic poem which traces the journey of Aeneas from fallen Troy to the founding of Rome. The story speaks to every Venetian heart, for Venice, too, was founded by refugees, by people fleeing destruction who found strength and purpose in these unlikely islands, who built from mud and marsh a city that challenges the greatest powers of the ancient world. The fog begins to show signs of change, not lifting exactly, but becoming more dynamic, more alive with subtle movements and variations in density. Through it, you catch glimpses of architectural details that make Venice unique among all cities. Gothic arches that show the influence of trade with Byzantium, Byzantine capitals that speak of connections with the Eastern Roman Empire, Islamic geometric patterns that arrived with spice merchants from Alexandria and Damascus. A palazzo emerges partially from the mist, its facade a symphony of rose and white marble. The rose marble came from quarries in Verona, where Roman emperors once sought stone for their monuments. The white marble traveled from Carrara, that Tuscan mountain where Michelangelo himself will one day select stone for his sculptures. The combination creates a surface that seems to glow even in the dim morning light. Speaking of wealth and taste, and connections to the wider world. The palazzo's windows are framed with delicate tracery, stone carved into patterns that seem light as lace but strong as iron. The craftsmen who created these decorations learned their art in workshops passed down through generations, where fathers taught sons the secrets of making stone appear to flow like fabric, where beauty and structure were understood to be partners rather than competitors. You pass beneath the palazzo's shadow, feeling the cool breath of morning air that flows between the buildings. The air carries new scents here, the smell of fresh plaster from renovation work, the aroma of olive oil heating in kitchen fires, the green fragrance of herbs growing in window boxes and secret gardens hidden behind high walls. Your pace remains unhurried, meditative, allowing the city to reveal herself gradually through the shifting veils of fog. Venice rewards those who take time to notice, who appreciate the small details that collectively create beauty, who understand that true magnificence lies not in individual monuments, but in the harmony of countless elements working together. The stones beneath your feet tell their own story, some new and sharp-edged from recent repairs, others worn smooth by centuries of foot traffic, all fitted together with the skill of master builders who understood that a city built on water must be built to last. The mortar between the stones was mixed with volcanic ash from the fields around Naples. That ancient ingredient that Roman engineers discovered made underwater construction possible. You turn into another calle, this one so narrow that you could touch both walls by extending your arms. Here, the fog seems more concentrated, more intimate, creating a world within the world. The buildings rise high on either side, their upper stories housing workshops and living spaces, their ground floors often flooded during the highest tides, their basements existing in a realm where water and earth negotiate constant treaties. A shrine appears in a wall niche, a painted image of the Virgin Mary holding the Christ child. The painting, protected by a sheet of glass, shows the influence of Byzantine icon painting mixed with newer techniques learned from Flemish masters. The Virgin's robe is painted with ultramarine, that precious pigment made from ground lapis lazuli, more expensive than gold, brought to Venice by merchants who understand that beauty is as valuable as any other commodity. Before the shrine, someone has left a small bundle of herbs: rosemary for remembrance, thyme for courage, basil for protection. The herbs came from gardens on the mainland, tended by women who understand the old knowledge about plants and their powers. This simple offering, this connection between the sacred and the everyday, represents the spiritual heart that beats within Venice's commercial body. You pause before the shrine, not necessarily from religious conviction, but from respect for the human need to find meaning beyond the merely material. The painted eyes of the Virgin seem to follow you, offering blessing or comfort or simply acknowledgement that you too are part of the great human story that began in gardens and will end, perhaps, in understanding. The fog swirls around the shrine, creating momentary patterns of light and shadow, as if the very air were trying to create its own artwork. For a moment, the mist seems to lift slightly, revealing more of the calle's details, the iron grates protecting ground floor windows, The stone wellheads providing access to fresh water, the carved decorations that mark the homes of prosperous merchants. Then the fog thickens again, drawing its veils around you, creating once more that sense of moving through a dream where familiar becomes mysterious, where every step might lead to discovery. Your books, safe in their silk wrappings, seem to pulse gently against your side, as if they too sense the magic of this misty morning, as if the words within their pages respond to the poetry of fog and stone and water. You emerge from the narrow calle into a slightly larger space, a small campo where several streets converge. Here, even in the fog, you can sense the approaching energy of the day. Shutters are opening in the buildings around you. Smoke is beginning to rise from chimneys. The sounds of domestic life, muffled but unmistakable, drift down from the upper stories. A baker's boy appears through the mist, carrying a basket of fresh bread to a customer. The bread, still warm from the oven, releases steam that mingles with the fog, creating small clouds of flour-scented moisture. The grain for the bread came from the mainland, from fields in the Veneto, where farmers plow with oxen and plant according to seasons their grandfathers understood. The bread itself, dense and nourishing, will fuel another day of Venetian enterprise. The boy nods to you respectfully, recognizing in your bearing and dress a man of some learning, someone worthy of courtesy, even if not wealthy enough to command deference. His respect for books and those who carry them reflects Venice's understanding that knowledge, like spices and silk, is a valuable commodity, something worth importing, preserving, and sharing with those wise enough to appreciate its worth. You continue through the campo, past a well whose stone curb shows the wear of countless hands, past doorways where cats sun themselves when the fog lifts, past windows where herbs grow in wooden boxes, their green leaves promising flavor for evening meals. Each detail, small in itself, contributes to the larger tapestry of Venetian life, the daily miracle by which thousands of people create a functioning city on islands that logic says should not support human habitation. The fog begins to thin slightly as you approach another canal, this one wider than the narrow waterways you've been following. The increased space allows more air to move, more light to penetrate, more life to flow. You can see the opposite bank now, dimly but definitely, lined with houses whose foundations disappear into dark water, whose upper stories emerge from the mist like ships sailing through clouds. A gondolier appears, his long oar cutting silently through the water. His boat, painted black according to sumptuary laws designed to prevent excessive display, carries a single passenger. A merchant, perhaps, or a scholar, or a woman visiting family across the city. The passenger sits quietly, wrapped in a woolen cloak, enjoying the peaceful privacy that fog provides. The gondolier navigates by sound and memory, by the feel of current and the echo of his calls off distant walls. His skill, developed over years of practice, allows him to move safely through waterways that would challenge a newcomer even in bright sunlight. He represents one of Venice's unique professions, men who have adapted human labor to the city's watery environment, who make possible the daily movement of people and goods that keeps the city alive. As the gondola disappears into the mist, you continue along the fondamenta, the walkway that borders this wider canal. Here the stones are laid in patterns, herringbone designs that provide better grit for wet feet, decorative borders that please the eye while serving practical purposes. The patterns represent the marriage of beauty and utility that characterizes Venetian design. The understanding that function and form must work together to create lasting value. Your satchel seems to grow lighter as you walk, not because the books have lost weight, but because your body has found its rhythm. Because you have entered that meditative state where effort becomes effortless, where walking becomes a form of prayer, where each step carries you not just through space, but through time, connecting you to all the other walkers who have worn these stones smooth with their passing. The fog continues its slow dance around you, sometimes thickening until you can barely see your own feet, sometimes thinning to reveal architectural treasures that emerge like gifts from the mist. A carved capital appears, decorated with leaves and flowers, so realistic they seem to move in the shifting air. A decorative balcony reveals itself, its ironwork twisted into patterns that speak of the metalworker's art, of hammers ringing on anvils, of fire and skill, transforming raw metal into objects of beauty. The sound of water is everywhere, gentle but persistent, the fundamental music of Venice. It laps against stone foundations, gurgles through the gaps between mooring posts, drips from the undersides of bridges, creates a constant liquid symphony that forms the backdrop for all human activity in this floating city. The water connects every building, every canal, every life, reminding all who live here that they are part of something larger, something that flows and changes, but endures. You pause at a bridge, one of the countless spans that connect Venice's islands into a unified city. This bridge, like most, is built of Istrian stone, that limestone from across the Adriatic that resists salt water and supports enormous weight. The arch is a perfect semicircle, a shape that distributes weight evenly, that has carried traffic for centuries and will carry it for centuries more. From the bridge, you look down at the canal below, watching the fog create patterns on the water's surface. Small boats appear and disappear like thoughts, present one moment, gone the next, part of the constant flow of life that makes Venice unique. Each boat carries its own story, its own purpose, its own contribution to the great enterprise of urban survival on islands that exist between sea and sky. The fog begins to show the first subtle signs of change, not lifting, but becoming more luminous, touched by the hidden sun that climbs invisible above the overcast. The light, diffused and gentle, creates no harsh shadows, casts no sharp edges, but begins to reveal more of the architectural treasures that emerge from the mist, like memories becoming clear. A palazzo reveals itself gradually, its Gothic facade a symphony of pointed arches and delicate tracery. The building was constructed by a family whose wealth came from trading with Constantinople, bringing Byzantine silk and Greek manuscripts to Western markets, carrying Venetian glass and silver to Eastern courts. The architecture reflects these connections, showing influences from both East and West, creating something uniquely Venetian in its synthesis of diverse traditions. The palazzo's water entrance, marked by striped mooring poles, speaks of the days when merchants conducted business from their boats, when cargo was loaded and unloaded directly into ground floor storerooms, when the line between water and land, between transportation and architecture, was beautifully blurred. Even now, in the fog, you can sense the building's connection to the water, its roots in the liquid foundation that supports all Venetian life. You continue walking, your pace unchanged, your breathing steady, your mind open to the gentle revelations that fog makes possible. The books in your satchel seem to respond to the city's rhythm, as if the wisdom they contain recognizes kinship with Venice's own accumulated knowledge, the understanding that comes from generations of people solving impossible problems, creating beauty from necessity, finding ways to thrive in circumstances that would defeat less determined souls. One book contains the geographical writings of Ptolemy, that ancient Alexandrian whose maps guided sailors across unknown seas for more than 1,000 years. His understanding of coordinates and distances, imperfect but groundbreaking, made possible the voyages of discovery that connect Venice to markets in Africa and Asia, that bring exotic goods to European tables and European ideas to foreign courts. Another volume holds the botanical observations of Dioscorides, the Greek physician whose catalogue of medicinal plants remains the foundation of pharmaceutical knowledge. His descriptions of herbs and their properties, preserved through centuries of copying and translation, guide the apothecaries who work in Venice's spice markets, who understand that healing and seasoning often spring from the same roots. A third book, particularly precious to you, contains newly translated works of Aristotle, the Stagirite whose curiosity about the natural world led him to observe and categorize everything from sea creatures to human emotions. His systematic approach to knowledge, his belief that understanding comes through careful observation, influences the merchants and craftsmen who make Venice a center of practical innovation. The fog swirls more dynamically now, responding to subtle changes in temperature and air pressure, creating momentary clearings that reveal glimpses of the wider city. Through one such clearing, you catch sight of a church campanile, its brick tower rising into the overcast like a finger pointing toward heaven. The bells in that tower, cast in bronze foundries where craftsmen understand the metallurgy of sound, call the faithful to prayer and mark the hours for those who navigate by time as well as by stars. The tower disappears again into the mist, but its brief appearance reminds you of Venice's vertical dimension, the way the city reaches upward as well as spreading horizontally across its islands. Church towers and palazzo chimneys, workshop rooflines and bell towers, all rise into the sky like an urban forest, creating a skyline that changes with every viewing angle, that offers new compositions of dome and spire and gable to those who take time to notice. Your footsteps continue their gentle rhythm on the stone, each step a meditation, each moment a small prayer of gratitude for this opportunity to move through one of the world's most beautiful cities in one of its most magical moods. The fog transforms the familiar into the fantastic, the everyday into the extraordinary, the known into the mysterious. As you walk, you become aware of the sounds that penetrate the mist, the distant hammering of shipbuilders in the arsenal, the calls of market vendors preparing for the day's business, the singing of women hanging laundry from upper-story windows, the splash of oars as early commuters begin their journeys across the city's watery streets. Each sound, muffled but distinct, adds another voice to Venice's morning chorus. The fog continues to evolve, becoming lighter, more translucent, touched with the promise of eventual sunshine. But for now, in this perfect moment between night and day, between dream and waking, you continue your meditative journey through the floating city, carrying books full of wisdom toward readers hungry for knowledge, participating in the ancient human exchange of ideas that make civilization possible. Your breathing matches the rhythm of the water, in and out, like tides, like the eternal pulse that connects all living things to the sea that gave them birth. Each breath brings the sense of Venice, salt and stone, herbs and spices, the green smell of algae and the brown smell of mud, the sweet scent of baking bread, and the sharp aroma of wine fermenting in distant cellars. The fog embraces you like a gentle blanket, soft and warm, protective and nurturing. It muffles the sharp edges of anxiety, softens the harsh corners of worry, creates a world where peace is possible, where beauty reveals itself gradually, where each step forward is also a step inward, toward the quiet center where wisdom waits for those patient enough to listen. Your eyelids grow heavy, not with sleep, but with contentment, with the deep satisfaction that comes from moving slowly through beauty, from carrying knowledge toward those who will treasure it, from participating in the great human adventure of discovery and sharing, of preservation and transmission, of love expressed through the patient copying and careful carrying of words that matter. And the fog drifts softly around you, gentle as a mother's touch, peaceful as a prayer, carrying you deeper into the morning, deeper into Venice, deeper into the dream of walking through beauty, with books full of wisdom, ready to share treasures of the mind with souls prepared to receive them. A mist swirls gently, and your journey continues, slow and peaceful, into the awakening day. Your breathing grows deeper, more rhythmic, matching the gentle lapping of water against ancient stone. The fog wraps around you like silk from distant Cathay, soft and protective, carrying you forward on currents of peace and possibility. Your eyelids grow heavy with contentment, and the morning mist hums softly through the water-filled streets. You drift into a gentle, restful peace as Chapter 1 draws to its close. Chapter 2: Crossing Bridges and Cobbled Alleys. You emerge from the peaceful depths of fog-wrapped dreams, awakening gradually to find yourself on a small stone bridge, your books secure in their leather satchel, the morning mist beginning its slow retreat before the climbing sun. The bridge beneath your feet, built of Istrian limestone worn smooth by countless crossings, spans a narrow rio where gondolas rest like sleeping birds. Your hand trails along the stone balustrade, feeling the gentle warmth that promises a beautiful day ahead. The carving beneath your palm, simple scrollwork done by a mason whose grandfather learned his craft from Byzantine masters, connects you to generations of artisans who understood that beauty and function must walk hand in hand. You breathe deeply, inhaling the morning air that carries new scents as the fog retreats. The salt tang of the lagoon mingles now with fresher aromas, herbs growing in window boxes, bread baking in neighborhood ovens, the green scent of ivy climbing ancient walls. Each breath brings the promise of discovery, of knowledge shared, of books finding their way to readers who hunger for wisdom. Below you, the canal water reflects patches of clearing sky, its surface disturbed only by the gentle wake of a supply boat carrying fresh water from the mainland. The boatman, his weathered hands steady on the oars, navigates by memory through waterways he has known since boyhood. His cargo, barrels of sweet water drawn from springs in the Brenta Valley, will sustain Venice through another day, continuing the ancient partnership between the floating city and the fertile mainland that supports her impossible existence. You begin to descend the bridge's gentle slope, each step taking you deeper into the awakening city. The stones beneath your feet, laid by builders who understood that every surface in Venice must shed water efficiently, are cut and fitted with the precision of master craftsmen. The mortar between them, mixed with crushed brick and lime, has weathered centuries of salt air and acqua alta. Those high tides that remind all Venetians that they live by grace of the sea. Your satchel, crafted from leather tanned in the workshops of the Giudecca, moves gently against your side as you walk. Inside, your precious cargo of books waits patiently, each volume wrapped in silk that whispers softly with your movement. The silk came from cocoons spun in mulberry groves near Vicenza, where women tend the delicate worms that create threads stronger than steel, more precious than silver. One book particularly draws your attention this morning, a newly acquired manuscript containing the agricultural wisdom of Columella. That Roman writer whose observations about soil and seasons remain as valid today as they were 1,000 years ago. The text, copied by monks in the scriptorium at San Giorgio Maggiore, promises to find eager readers among the mainland farmers who supply Venice with grain and vegetables, wine and olive oil, the bounty of earth that sustains this city of water. As you reach the bridge's foot, you enter a narrow calle that winds between buildings whose upper stories seem to lean toward each other, creating an intimate corridor of stone and shadow. Here the fog lingers longest, reluctant to surrender its gentle hold on the spaces where sunlight rarely penetrates. The walls on either side, built of brick, faced with trachyte stone from the Euganean hills, rise 4 and 5 stories, housing families whose lives unfold in vertical layers above the commerce of the ground floors. Your footsteps echo softly in this enclosed space, creating a rhythm that blends with the distant sounds of the awakening city. Shutters creak open above you, releasing the night's accumulated warmth, letting in the fresh air that will cool the workshops where glassblowers and silk weavers, goldsmiths and bookbinders will soon begin another day of creating beauty from raw materials gathered across the known world. A cat appears from a shadowed doorway, its gray coat blending perfectly with the weathered stone. The cat, well-fed and confident, represents the practical magic by which Venice maintains itself, every creature finding its role in the great enterprise of urban survival. This particular cat, you suspect, belongs to a spice merchant whose warehouses must be kept free of the rats that would otherwise feast on precious cargo of pepper and cinnamon. nutmeg and cloves brought from the distant Moluccas by ships that navigate by stars and prayer. The cat follows you for several steps, then vanishes into another shadow, part of the feline network that moves invisibly through Venice's maze of passages, carrying out missions of pest control and companionship with equal dedication. Its presence reminds you that the city supports all forms of life, that survival here requires cooperation, adaptation, the willingness to find opportunity in the most unlikely circumstances. You emerge from the narrow calle into a small campo, a neighborhood square where several streets converge around a well that provides fresh water for the surrounding buildings. The wellhead, carved from a single block of Istrian stone, bears the arms of the Dandolo family, those ancient patricians who have served Venice as doges and admirals, merchants and diplomats for more than 3 centuries. Their generosity in providing this well, like similar benefactions throughout the city, reflects the Venetian understanding that private wealth carries public obligations. The campo, paved with trachytite stones set in patterns that shed rainwater efficiently, shows signs of the city's awakening activity. A woman emerges from a nearby house, her wooden clogs echoing on the stone as she approaches the well. She wears the simple but well-made clothing of the artisan class. Her woolen dress, dyed with weld to achieve a warm yellow that speaks of sunshine even on cloudy days. Her ceramic jug, glazed with a floral pattern that shows Moorish influence filtered through Tuscan workshops, will soon carry fresh water to a kitchen where the day's meals are beginning to take shape. You pause respectfully as she draws water, appreciating the graceful efficiency of her movements, the way her hands know exactly how to manage rope and bucket, the satisfied sound of clear water flowing into fired clay. This daily ritual, repeated in campos throughout Venice, connects every household to the larger miracle of urban survival, to the engineering that makes fresh water available on islands surrounded by salt, to the civic cooperation that maintains wells and cisterns, aqueducts and distribution systems. The woman nods to you politely, recognizing in your bearing and the books at your side a fellow participant in Venice's intellectual life. Her acknowledgement carries no servility, no false deference, but rather the mutual respect of citizens who understand that knowledge, like water, is a resource that benefits everyone when shared freely. In Venice, literacy is not confined to the nobility. Merchants and craftsmen alike understand that reading and writing are tools as essential as hammer and chisel, as necessary as sail and oar. As she returns to her house, you continue across the campo toward a bridge that will carry you deeper into the city's commercial heart. This bridge, slightly larger than the last, spans a broader canal where early morning traffic has begun to flow. Gondolas move past, carrying merchants to their warehouses, craftsmen to their workshops, servants to the markets, where they will purchase the day's provisions. Each boat represents a thread in the complex tapestry of Venetian commerce, the daily weaving of needs and resources that keeps the city alive. From the bridge's center, you pause to observe the growing activity below. A cargo boat loaded with firewood passes beneath, its burden cut in the forests of Cadore and floated down the Piave River to fuel Venetian hearths and workshops. The wood, seasoned ash and oak, will warm families through the damp months when fog and rain make the lagoon climate challenging, even for those born to its rhythms. The boatman guiding this cargo, his movements economical and sure, continues a tradition that stretches back to Venice's earliest days, when survival depended on maintaining connections with the mainland forests and fields. Another boat carries amphoras of wine from the vineyards of the Veneto. They're clay vessels sealed with cork from Spanish oak trees and marked with symbols that identify their contents and origins. The wine, pressed from grapes that grew on hillsides where Roman legions once marched, will grace Venetian tables, celebrate business agreements, seal marriages and partnerships, provide the social lubrication that makes commerce and culture possible. In a city where strangers from distant lands must learn to trust and cooperate. Your books, resting safely in their silk wrappings, seem to pulse gently against your side as you watch this flow of goods and people. The volumes you carry represent another kind of cargo, ideas and insights that travel not in boats, but in minds. Wisdom that journeys from author to reader, from teacher to student, from one generation to the next. Like the wine and wood passing below, your books carry the essence of distant places, the concentrated experience of scholars and poets, physicians and philosophers who understood that knowledge, like any precious commodity, gains value when shared. One volume, recently acquired from a monastery near Padua, contains the engineering drawings of Hero of Alexandria, that ancient Greek inventor whose understanding of steam and pressure anticipated by centuries the mechanical innovations that are beginning to transform European manufacturing. The diagrams, carefully copied by monks who may not have fully understood their significance, wait to inspire the next generation of artificers and engineers who will harness nature's forces to human purposes. Another book holds the musical theories of Boethius, the Roman philosopher who understood that mathematics and melody are intimately connected, that the same proportions that create architectural harmony also govern the relationships between musical tones. His insights, preserved through the Dark Ages by scholars who recognized their enduring value, influence the composers who create the polyphonic masses heard in Venetian churches, the secular songs that enliven palace entertainments. You resume your walk, descending from the bridge into another network of narrow streets that wind between buildings whose ground floors house workshops and storage areas, whose upper stories contain the living spaces where Venice's artisan families create their own small worlds of domestic comfort and professional pride. The architecture here speaks of organic growth, of buildings added and modified over centuries, adapted to changing needs while maintaining the essential Venetian balance between public and private space, between commerce and residence, between individual ambition and collective survival. The fog continues its gradual retreat, revealing more details of the urban landscape that emerged from marsh and ambition, from necessity and vision. Gothic windows begin to show their elegant proportions, their pointed arches and delicate tracery, speaking of Venice's connections to Northern European traditions, modified by Mediterranean sensibilities. Byzantine elements appear in carved capitals and decorative friezes, evidence of the long relationship between Venice and Constantinople, that partnership in trade and culture that enriched both cities until the Turkish conquest changed the balance of Eastern commerce. A small shrine appears in a wall niche, its painted image of Saint Christopher carrying the Christ child, speaking to the concerns of travelers in a city where every journey involves crossing water. The painting, protected by glass made in the furnaces of Murano, shows the influence of both Byzantine iconography and the newer naturalistic styles being developed by Flemish and Italian masters. Fresh flowers lie before the shrine, roses from a garden on the Giudecca, their fragrance mixing with the salt air to create a perfume that speaks of both earthly beauty and spiritual aspiration. The flowers remind you that Venice, despite her commercial focus and maritime orientation, maintains deep connections to the cycles of growth and harvest that govern agricultural life. The roses came from gardens, where mainland traditions of cultivation have been adapted to island conditions, where gardeners understand that beauty, like prosperity, requires constant attention to practical details. Even in the heart of the city, window boxes and small courtyards provide space for herbs and flowers, connections to the green world that nourishes both body and spirit. You continue through streets that grow gradually wider, that show signs of increasing commercial activity as you approach the areas where Venice conducts her daily business with the wider world. The stones beneath your feet, worn smooth by countless passages, bear the patina of age and use that gives the city its distinctive character. Each stone was quarried on the mainland, transported by boat, fitted by masons who understood that building on water requires different techniques than building on solid ground, different materials, different approaches to the eternal challenge of creating permanent structures in a world where everything flows and changes. The sound of hammering reaches your ears, the rhythmic percussion of metalworkers beginning their daily labor. Somewhere nearby, in a workshop inherited from father to son for generations, a blacksmith is shaping iron brought from mines in Syria, creating tools and hardware, horseshoes and weapons, the countless metal objects that make organized life possible. The iron itself traveled a journey as complex as your books, from ore extracted by miners who worked by candlelight in mountain tunnels, through smelters who understood the alchemy of fire and carbon, to merchants who recognized that metal, like knowledge, becomes more valuable when transported to places where it is scarce. The sound of hammering reaches your ears, the rhythmic percussion of metalworkers beginning their daily labor. Somewhere nearby, in a workshop inherited from father to son for generations, a blacksmith is shaping iron brought from mines in Syria, creating tools and hardware, horseshoes and weapons, the countless metal objects that make organized life possible. The iron itself traveled a journey as complex as your books, from ore extracted by miners who worked by candlelight in mountain tunnels, through smelters who understood the alchemy of fire and carbon, to merchants who recognized that metal, like knowledge, becomes more valuable when transported to places where it is scarce. Your breathing remains slow and steady, matching the rhythm of your walking, the pace of your thoughts as they flow gently from observation to reflection, from present moment to historical connection. The books in your satchel seem lighter with each step, not because their physical weight has diminished, but because you have found your stride, your proper relationship to the burden of knowledge you carry. Like the boatman navigating the canals, you have learned to work with, rather than against, the forces that shape your environment, to find efficiency through adaptation rather than resistance. Your breathing remains slow and steady, matching the rhythm of your walking, the pace of your thoughts as they flow gently from observation to reflection, from present moment to historical connection. The books in your satchel seem lighter with each step, not because their physical weight has diminished, but because you have found your stride, your proper relationship to the burden of knowledge you carry. Like the boatman navigating the canals, you have learned to work with, rather than against, the forces that shape your environment, to find efficiency through adaptation rather than resistance. But church bell begins to toll somewhere in the distance, its bronze voice calling the faithful to morning prayers. The sound carries clearly through the increasingly thin fog, each note spreading in concentric circles like ripples on still water. The bell, cast in foundries where craftsmen understand that bronze must be mixed with precise proportions of tin and copper to achieve the proper resonance, was blessed by bishops who understood that sound, like light, can carry sacred meaning across material distances. The tolling reminds you that Venice, despite her reputation for commercial pragmatism, remains a profoundly spiritual city, a place where earthly and heavenly concerns interpenetrate in complex ways. The merchants who sail to Alexandria and Constantinople, Crimea, and the Low Countries carry with them not only trade goods, but also religious artifacts, icons, and relics that connect distant markets to sacred centers, that remind travelers that profit and pilgrimage often follow the same routes. As you walk toward the sound of the bell, you pass a bakery where the day's first loaves are cooling on wooden racks. The bread, made from grain grown in the fertile fields of the Po Valley, represents the daily miracle by which Venice feeds herself despite having virtually no agricultural land. The wheat traveled from farm to mill to city by boat, each stage requiring its own expertise, its own network of relationships and obligations. The baker who transformed grain into nourishment learned his craft through years of apprenticeship, understanding that bread, like books, must be created with patience and skill if it is to sustain those who consume it. The aroma of fresh bread mingles with other scents that speak of the city's awakening commercial activity. From a spice warehouse comes the exotic fragrance of cinnamon and nutmeg, pepper and ginger, aromatics that traveled from the Indies through Arab intermediaries to Venetian warehouses, where they wait to season European dishes and preserve European meats. The spices represent Venice's role as intermediary between East and West, as translator between different worlds of taste and custom, different approaches to the art of living well. Your satchel adjusts naturally to your walking rhythm. The leather straps, worn smooth by years of carrying precious cargo through the streets of various cities. The leather itself, tanned in the Giudecca workshops using oak bark gathered from mainland forests, has absorbed the oils from your hands, the moisture from sea air, the countless small influences that gradually transform raw materials into objects of beauty and utility. Like the books it contains, the satchel has become more valuable through use, more beautiful through the patina of experience. Inside the satchel, your books rest in silk wrappings that protect them from moisture while allowing air to circulate around the parchment and bindings. The silk, woven in workshops where women tend looms whose basic design has remained unchanged since ancient times, shimmers even in the dim light that filters through the retreating fog. Each thread in the fabric represents hours of careful labor, from the feeding of silkworms on mulberry leaves, through the reeling of cocoons, to the patient work of weaving threads into cloth that surpasses linen for fineness, wool for strength. One book, particularly precious this morning, contains the newly translated works of Ptolemy's geography, that ancient Alexandrian's attempt to map the entire known world using mathematical principles of longitude and latitude. The translation, completed by scholars in Florence who worked from Greek manuscripts preserved in Byzantine libraries, opens new possibilities for navigation and exploration, for understanding the relationships between distant places and cultures. Venetian merchants, who navigate by experience and intuition, are beginning to see the value of Ptolemy's systematic approach to geographical knowledge. Another volume holds the medical writings of Rhazes, the great Persian physician whose clinical observations laid the foundation for scientific approaches to diagnosis and treatment. His descriptions of diseases, his careful documentation of symptoms and cures, represent the kind of systematic knowledge that makes the difference between life and death when plague or fever strikes crowded urban populations. Venetian physicians trained in the medical schools of Padua and Bologna increasingly recognize that healing, like navigation, requires both traditional wisdom and empirical observation. A third book, worn soft by many hands, contains the poetry of Dante Alighieri, that Florentine exile whose Divine Comedy maps the spiritual geography of human experience with the same precision that Ptolemy applied to physical space. The poem, with its intricate blend of theology and politics, classical learning and contemporary observation, speaks to readers who understand that literature, like medicine or geography, can provide practical guidance for navigating the complexities of existence. The fog continues to thin and brighten, touched now by the strengthening sun that climbs invisible above the overcast. More architectural details emerge. Gothic facades with their pointed arches and rose windows. Byzantine capitals carved with intricate foliage. Romanesque doorways that speak of Venice's earliest connections to mainland traditions. Each style represents a different moment in the city's evolution, a different solution to the ongoing challenge of creating beauty while serving practical needs. You pass beneath a sottoportego, one of those covered passageways that tunnel through buildings, connecting streets, while providing additional living or storage space above. The passage, cool and dim even as the morning brightens, offers a moment of intimate connection with Venice's unique urban fabric. The walls on either side, built of brick and faced with stone, show the marks of countless hands, the wear patterns created by generations of people moving through this space on their daily errands. Emerging from the sottoportego, you find yourself in a wider street that shows signs of increasing commercial activity. Shop fronts are opening, their wooden shutters folding back to reveal displays of goods from throughout the Mediterranean world. A cloth merchant arranges bolts of fabric, Flemish woolens and Florentine silks, Alexandrian cottons and Spanish linens, each textile representing a different tradition of craftsmanship, a different approach to the ancient art of creating beauty and comfort from plant and animal fibers. Next door, a goldsmith unlocks his workshop, preparing to spend another day transforming precious metals into objects that combine function with ornament. The gold he works came from African mines, carried across the Sahara by camel caravans, traded in North African ports for European goods, refined by techniques learned from Arab metallurgists who understood the chemistry of purification and alloying. His tools, hammers and files, chisels and burnishers, were forged by blacksmiths who specialized in creating implements precise enough for the most delicate work. Your pace remains unhurried, contemplative, allowing the city to reveal herself gradually as the fog continues its retreat. Venice rewards those who take time to notice, who appreciate the layers of history embedded in every stone, every carving, every architectural detail that speaks of human ingenuity applied to the challenge of creating permanence in a world of constant change. The books you carry, with their own layers of meaning and reference, their own accumulation of wisdom and insight, participate in this same process of preservation and transmission, of taking the best of the past and making it available to future generations. The street you follow now runs parallel to a major canal, one of the arterial waterways that connect Venice's scattered islands into a functioning urban unit. Through gaps between buildings, you catch glimpses of boat traffic, the steady flow of gondolas and cargo vessels that carry people and goods throughout the city. The constant movement of boats, their oars, cutting rhythmically through dark water, creates a visual poetry that complements the architectural symphony of the buildings lining the canals. A bridge appears ahead, this one larger than those you've crossed before, its single arch spanning a canal wide enough for 2 gondolas to pass comfortably. The bridge's stone balustrade, carved with simple but elegant decoration, provides support for pedestrians while allowing unobstructed views of the water traffic below. From this vantage point, you will be able to observe the growing complexity of Venetian commerce, the intricate dance of boats and cargo, merchants and customers. That makes possible the city's continued prosperity. As you approach the bridge, your books seem to grow lighter still, as if they too anticipate the broader perspectives that elevation provides. The volumes in your satchel, each one representing years of scholarly labor, decades of accumulated wisdom, centuries of preserved tradition, wait patiently for the readers who will give them new life, new purpose, new opportunities to influence human understanding and act. The fog swirls more dynamically now, responding to warming air and increased activity, creating momentary openings that reveal glimpses of the wider city before closing again in gentle mystery. Through one such opening, you see the distant outline of a church campanile, its brick tower rising into the clearing sky like a pointing finger, a reminder that Venice, despite her commercial orientation, remains connected to spiritual traditions that transcend material concerns. Your breathing remains deep and regular, synchronized with your walking rhythm, your heartbeat, the gentle pulse of life that connects you to all living things. Each breath brings new awareness, new appreciation for the miracle of existence, for the privilege of moving through beauty while carrying wisdom, for the opportunity to participate in the great human enterprise of learning and sharing, of preserving the best thoughts and highest aspirations of countless generations. The stone steps of the bridge rise gently before you, each step worn smooth by the passage of countless feet. each rise calculated to provide easy ascent while maintaining the structural integrity necessary to support the bridge's span. As you climb, your hand trailing along the stone balustrade, you feel the connection to all the other hands that have sought support here, all the other books that have crossed this span, all the other moments when knowledge traveled from one place to another, from one mind to another, from one time to another. And the fog continues its gentle retreat, revealing more of Venice's beauty with each passing moment, each footstep, each breath, drawing you deeper into the awakening city, deeper into the day's possibilities, deeper into the eternal dance between wisdom and wonder, between knowing and mystery, between the books you carry and the readers who await them. Your eyelids grow pleasantly heavy, not with exhaustion, but with contentment, with the deep satisfaction that comes from moving purposefully through beauty, from carrying treasure that enriches others, from participating in the ancient flow of knowledge from those who preserve to those who seek. The morning mist whispers softly around your shoulders, and the gentle rhythm of your footsteps, like waves lapping ancient stone, carries you peacefully forward into dreams of bridges crossed and wisdom shared. You drift into tranquil, restful sleep. Chapter 3. A pause at St. Mark's Square and meeting patrons. The morning sun, gentle and golden, draws you from peaceful dreams of bridges and books into the heart of Venice herself. You find yourself at the edge of the Piazza San Marco, that magnificent square that serves as the city's ceremonial center and beating heart. The fog has lifted now, revealing the piazza in all her splendor. The vast space, paved with trachyte stones from the Euganean hills, stretches before you like a stage set for the drama of Venetian life. Each stone, cut and fitted by master craftsmen who understood that public spaces must be both beautiful and practical, has been worn smooth by countless feet, polished by centuries of processions and celebrations, markets and meetings, the daily theater of commerce and governance that makes Venice unique among the cities of the world. Your books rest securely in their leather satchel, their weight familiar and comforting against your side. The morning light, filtered through wisps of remaining mist, illuminates the silk wrappings that protect your precious cargo. Today, in this most public of Venetian spaces, you will have the opportunity to share knowledge with patrons who appreciate the value of learning, who understand that books, like the spices and silks that flow through Venetian warehouses, represent concentrated wealth that grows more valuable when properly distributed. The Basilica of San Marco rises before you, its 5 domes crowned with crosses that catch the strengthening sunlight. The building, begun in the 11th century to house the relics of St. Mark, represents the marriage of East and West, defines Venetian culture. Byzantine mosaics gleam on the facade, their gold and blue surfaces creating a heavenly vision that speaks of Venice's connections to Constantinople, to the Orthodox traditions that shaped Eastern Christianity, to the artistic legacy of the Roman Empire's continuation in the Greek-speaking world. The bronze horses, those ancient sculptures that once adorned the Hippodrome in Constantinople, stand proud above the central portal, symbols of Venice's victory over her commercial rival, trophies of the Fourth Crusade that enriched Venetian churches with Byzantine treasures. Their presence speaks of the complex relationship between sacred and secular power, between religious devotion and political ambition, between the spiritual aspirations that build churches and the worldly success that makes such building possible. You walk slowly across the piazza, your footsteps joining the gentle percussion of other early visitors, merchants opening their stalls, clergy preparing for morning prayers, citizens beginning another day in this crossroads of the medieval world. The sound echoes softly off the surrounding buildings, the Doge's palace with its pink and white marble facade, the Procurati Vecchi with their long arcades of shops and offices, the Campanile rising like a giant needle toward heaven, each structure contributing to the architectural symphony that makes the piazza one of Europe's most magnificent public spaces. The Doge's palace, with its distinctive Gothic arches and delicate stonework, represents the unique Venetian solution to the challenge of republican government. Unlike other Italian cities ruled by princes or tyrants, Venice has chosen to limit executive power while maintaining the stability necessary for commercial success. The palace, serving as both residence and government center, embodies this balance between magnificence and restraint, between the dignity required of sovereign authority and the humility appropriate to elected office. The palace's lower arcade, supported by columns carved from Istrian limestone, provides shelter for citizens conducting business with various government offices. The columns themselves, each one slightly different from its neighbors, speak of the organic process by which Venice grew from merchant republic to Mediterranean power. No single architect designed this facade. No royal decree commanded its construction. Instead, generations of builders and patrons, craftsmen and officials, contributed their skills and resources to create something greater than any individual vision. Your satchel, crafted from leather tanned with oak bark from mainland forests, adjusts comfortably to your walking rhythm. Inside, your books wait patiently for the scholarly conversations that make intellectual exchange possible. The volumes you carry today represent the flowering of learning that makes the 15th century a golden age of discovery and synthesis. When ancient wisdom, recovered from Greek manuscripts, meets new observations from travelers and naturalists, when traditional authorities are questioned by minds trained in rigorous analysis. One book, recently acquired from a monastery in Ravenna, contains the complete works of Cicero, that Roman orator whose understanding of rhetoric and politics continues to influence European education centuries after the fall of the Western Empire. His letters and speeches, preserved through the Dark Ages by monks who recognized their enduring value, provide models of Latin prose and political wisdom that shaped the thinking of diplomats and administrators throughout the Christian world. Another volume holds the newly translated Almagest of Ptolemy, that Alexandrian astronomer's comprehensive description of the celestial sphere and the movements of planets and stars. The translation, completed by scholars in Toledo who worked from Arabic versions of the original Greek, makes available to Latin readers the mathematical foundation of astronomical science. Venetian merchants who navigate by stars across waters where landmarks are few. Appreciate practical applications of such theoretical knowledge. A third book, particularly precious to you, contains the geographical writings of Strabo, that Greek historian whose descriptions of distant lands and peoples provide invaluable information for merchants and diplomats venturing beyond familiar territories. His account of Britain and Germany, Egypt and India, Armenia and Spain, helps Venetian traders understand the cultural contexts within which they must operate. The customs and expectations that govern commerce in different parts of the known world. The morning light grows stronger, illuminating more details of the piazza's architectural treasures. The mosaics on the basilica's facade begin to glow with their full brilliance. Christ in majesty, surrounded by apostles and evangelists. Scenes from the life of Saint Mark. Episodes from Venetian history that blend sacred and secular themes in ways that reflect the city's unique position between earthly and spiritual concerns. A group of patrician merchants emerges from the arcade of the Procurati Vecchi, their rich clothing and confident bearing marking them as members of Venice's ruling class. These men, descendants of the families that founded the Republic, that financed its expansion, that negotiated the treaties and trading agreements that created Venetian prosperity, represent potential patrons for the books you carry. Their education, typically including Latin and often Greek, rhetoric and mathematics, law and natural philosophy, prepares them to appreciate the scholarly treasures in your satchel. One merchant, his silk doublet dyed with precious cochineal to achieve a deep crimson that speaks of wealth and status, approaches with evident interest in your books. His bearing, confident but not arrogant, curious but not impatient, suggests a man accustomed to evaluating valuable goods, to recognizing quality and authenticity in objects that claim to represent distant origins and exotic properties. "Good morning, friend," he says, his voice carrying the measured cadences of a man who understands that speech, like merchandise, must be carefully presented to achieve maximum effect. "I see you carry books, rare volumes perhaps. My household maintains a library, and I am always interested in worthy additions to our collection." You respond with equal courtesy, understanding that in Venice, as in all commercial centers, relationships must be built on mutual respect and shared appreciation for excellence. "Indeed, sir, I carry volumes that speak to the learned mind, works that connect ancient wisdom to contemporary understanding, books that serve both pleasure and practical application." The merchant's eyes, sharp with the intelligence that makes successful commerce possible, examine your satchel with the same attention he might give to a cargo of spices or a shipment of silk. His hands, soft but strong, bear the marks of a man who has handled valuable objects, who understands that true worth often lies in details invisible to casual observation. "Might I inquire about the nature of your collection?" he asks, his tone suggesting genuine scholarly interest rather than mere commercial curiosity. "My family has long appreciated the marriage of learning and practical wisdom. We understand that books, like ships, carry precious cargo across great distances." You open your satchel carefully, revealing the silk-wrapped volumes that represent your morning's offering to Venice's intellectual community. The silk, woven in workshops, where master craftsmen understand the relationship between beauty and protection, between display and preservation, shimmers in the strengthening sunlight. Each book, as you unwrap it, reveals binding and typography that speak of its origin and quality. Monastery scriptorium or university workshop, careful copying or hurried reproduction. The merchant examines the Cicero first. His fingers, experienced in evaluating texture and quality, assessing the parchment and binding with the same expertise he might apply to Flemish cloth or Alexandrian spices. The parchment, made from sheepskins, prepared by craftsmen who learned their techniques from Byzantine masters, bears the text in a clear humanist script that makes reading both accurate and pleasant. "This is fine work," he observes, his appreciation evident in voice and expression. The scribe understood his craft. The letters flow with the rhythm of natural speech. The margins allow for annotation and commentary. This would serve well in my son's education. He studies rhetoric at the University of Padua, where such examples of classical Latin are highly valued. His mention of Padua, that ancient center of learning where students from throughout Europe come to study law and medicine, rhetoric and philosophy, suggests connections that extend far beyond Venice's commercial network. The university, founded in the 13th century, represents the flowering of intellectual life that accompanies urban prosperity. The recognition that educated minds, like skilled craftsmen, contribute to the commonwealth in ways that transcend immediate material benefit. You show him the Ptolemy next, explaining the significance of having astronomical knowledge available in Latin translation, the practical applications for navigation and calendar making that make such theoretical learning valuable to merchant families whose ships must find their way across trackless seas. The merchant listens with the attention of a man who appreciates the connection between abstract knowledge and practical success, who understands that investment in learning, like investment in ships and warehouses, can yield returns that continue for generations. My partner in the spice trade would find this invaluable, he comments, turning pages with the careful attention of someone who recognizes the labor required to create and preserve such works. He maintains correspondence with astronomers in Alexandria and Damascus, comparing observations to improve our understanding of seasonal patterns, of the relationship between celestial movements and earthly weather. The conversation continues in the growing warmth of morning sunshine. Two men sharing appreciation for the accumulated wisdom of ages, for the miracle of preserved knowledge that allows each generation to build upon the discoveries of its predecessors. Around you, the piazza fills gradually with the day's activity. Merchants opening stalls, pilgrims approaching the basilica, citizens conducting the business of republic and commerce that makes Venice prosper. Other potential patrons notice your books, drawn by the evident quality of your merchandise and the serious discussion you maintain with the silk merchant. A group of younger men, students perhaps, or junior partners in established trading houses, gather at respectful distance, their eyes showing the hunger for knowledge that characterizes minds awakening to intellectual possibility. One student, his clothing simple but clean, his bearing suggesting good family background despite modest means, approaches with evident longing. "Master Bookseller," he says, his voice carrying the earnestness of youth combined with genuine appreciation for learning. "Might you have works suitable for one who seeks to understand the natural world? who hopes to contribute to the advancement of knowledge through careful observation and systematic study. His question, phrased with the precision of someone trained in academic discourse, suggests exposure to the new methods of inquiry that characterize Renaissance scholarship. Gone is the medieval reliance on authority alone, replaced by approaches that value direct observation, mathematical analysis, comparison between different sources and traditions. This young man represents the future of European intellectual life, the generation that will transform inherited wisdom into new understanding. You show him the Strabo, explaining how geographical knowledge serves not only merchants and diplomats, but also natural philosophers who seek to understand the relationship between climate and culture, between landscape and human development, between the physical characteristics of different regions and the civilizations they support. The young man's excitement, evident in quickened breathing and brightened eyes, reminds you why you chose the life of a wandering bookseller, why you value the opportunity to connect hungry minds with nourishing ideas. The morning progresses peacefully in such scholarly conversation. Books examined and appreciated, knowledge shared and transmitted. The ancient human enterprise of learning continuing under the gentle Venetian sun. The silk merchant, satisfied with his examination of the Cicero, reaches into his purse for the gold florins that will complete your transaction. The coins, minted in Florence, but accepted throughout the Mediterranean world, bear the lily that symbolizes that city's prosperity and the figure of St. John the Baptist, who serves as Florence's patron. The gold itself traveled from African mines through Arab intermediaries, refined by techniques that transform raw ore into the medium of exchange that makes international commerce possible. As you carefully wrap the Cicero again in its protective silk, you feel the satisfaction that comes from matching worthy books with appreciative readers, from knowing that Cicero's wisdom about rhetoric and politics will find new life in a Venetian household, will influence another generation of students learning to navigate the complexities of republican government and commercial diplomacy. The young student, his eagerness undiminished by his lighter purse, continues to examine the Strabo with the intensity of someone who recognizes a treasure beyond his immediate means. His fingers, stained with ink from long hours of copying texts he cannot afford to purchase, trace the coastlines and mountain ranges that Strabo described from his extensive travels and careful research. Perhaps, you suggest gently, understanding the eternal tension between scholarly desire and economic reality. You might know other students who share your interest in geographical knowledge. Together, you might find means to acquire such a volume, sharing both cost and benefit as scholars have done since learning began. His face brightens with hope and gratitude, recognizing in your suggestion not charity, but the practical wisdom that has always made knowledge accessible to those who truly seek it. In medieval universities, students routinely share books, copying passages that serve their particular studies, dividing expenses among groups united by common intellectual interests. Your proposal honors this tradition while ensuring that worthy books find appreciative homes. Indeed, Master, my colleagues at the studium would welcome such an opportunity, he responds, his voice carrying renewed enthusiasm. We meet regularly to discuss questions of natural philosophy, to compare observations and theoretical frameworks. Such a volume would serve our collective studies while remaining available to each member for private consultation. You nod approvingly, pleased to see learning valued above individual ownership. Scholarship prioritized over possession. The arrangement represents the best traditions of academic cooperation. The understanding that knowledge, unlike material goods, increases in value when shared, multiplies when distributed among willing minds. Around you, the piazza continues to fill with the day's growing activity. Pilgrims approach the basilica, their travel-stained clothing and earnest expressions marking them as visitors from distant lands who have journeyed to Venice as part of longer pilgrimages to Jerusalem or Rome. Some pause to examine your books, curious about volumes that might contain religious texts or devotional materials suitable for spiritual reading during long sea voyages. A merchant from the Germanic lands, recognizable by his fur-trimmed coat and the distinctive cut of his woolen hose, expresses interest in any books that might contain practical information about navigation or commercial law. His broken Italian, heavily accented but earnest, reveals both his foreign origin and his determination to conduct business despite linguistic barriers. "I seek books," he explains slowly, searching for the correct words, about the laws of sea, about the rules that govern merchants in different ports. My guild in Augsburg sends me to learn Venetian ways, to understand the customs that make trade possible between our cities. His request speaks to one of Venice's great contributions to medieval commerce, the development of maritime law and commercial codes that enable merchants from different cultures and legal traditions to conduct business safely and predictably. Venetian legal scholars, drawing on Roman law and Byzantine precedents, local custom and international practice, have created frameworks that make possible the complex multinational trade that supports the city's prosperity. You show him a volume containing excerpts from the Consolato del Mare, that comprehensive maritime code developed by Mediterranean trading cities to govern everything from cargo disputes to salvage rights, from the treatment of shipwrecked sailors to the division of profits among partners in commercial ventures. The text, written in Latin accessible to educated merchants throughout Europe, represents centuries of practical experience codified into principles that serve justice while promoting commerce. The German merchant examines the volume with the careful attention of someone who understands that legal knowledge, like navigational skill, can mean the difference between profit and loss, between successful ventures and costly failures. His questions, though halting in Italian, demonstrate sophisticated understanding of the commercial challenges that face international traders in an age when political boundaries, currency systems will meet and legal frameworks change with bewildering frequency. This is valuable knowledge, he concludes, his satisfaction evident despite linguistic limitations. My colleagues will appreciate such learning. It serves the common good when merchants understand the rules that govern honest trade, when disputes can be resolved according to established precedents rather than arbitrary power. His words remind you that your books serve not only individual education, but also the larger enterprise of civilized commerce, the development of institutions and understandings that make peaceful cooperation possible among peoples of different nations and traditions. The legal principles preserved in your volumes help create the stable environment within which scholarship itself can flourish, within which books can travel safely from seller to buyer, from teacher to student, from one generation to the next. The sun climbs higher, warming the stones of the piazza and drawing more citizens into the public square that serves as Venice's outdoor parliament, marketplace of ideas as well as goods. The light, no longer filtered through morning mist, reveals the full magnificence of San Marco's facade, the intricate details of carving and mosaic that represent centuries of artistic development. The marriage of Byzantine tradition with Western innovation that characterizes Venetian culture. A group of clerics emerges from the basilica, their black robes and serious expressions marking them as scholars attached to the cathedral chapter, men whose learning serves both sacred and secular purposes in a city where religious authority and commercial success must work together. One, evidently senior by age and bearing, notices your books with the interest of someone who understands their value for both personal study and institutional collection. Good morning, brother. He greets you with the courtesy appropriate among learned men, regardless of clerical status. I observe that you offer books of quality, works that serve the advancement of learning and the preservation of wisdom. Might your collection include volumes suitable for a cathedral library? Texts that would serve both scholarly research and the education of young clerics. His inquiry opens possibilities for sales that serve not individual collectors, but institutional needs. Libraries that preserve knowledge for future generations. Collections that remain available to serious students long after their original purchasers have died. Cathedral libraries, monastic scriptoriums, university collections. These represent the infrastructure of intellectual life. The repositories where learning accumulates and waits for minds capable of appreciating and extending it. You show him a volume containing the works of Augustine, that North African theologian whose synthesis of Christian doctrine with Platonic philosophy continues to influence European thought more than 8 centuries after his death. The manuscript, copied in the scriptorium of Monte Cassino by monks who understood that their labor served not only their own generation, but countless future readers, represents the careful preservation of ideas that might otherwise have been lost during the turbulent centuries following Rome's fall. The cleric examines the Augustine with the expertise of someone trained in manuscript evaluation, someone who understands the difference between accurate copying and careless reproduction, between scripts that serve easy reading and those that create confusion or error. His approval, evident in careful page-turning and satisfied nodding, suggests recognition of scholarly value worthy of institutional investment. This would serve our library well, he observes, his voice carrying the measured authority of academic judgment. Augustine's thoughts on divine illumination and human knowledge speak to questions that concern our students. His understanding of the relationship between reason and faith provides framework for scholarly inquiry that honors both intellectual rigor and spiritual truth. The conversation that follows, conducted in the mixture of Latin and Italian that serves scholarly discourse throughout Europe, reveals the cleric's sophisticated understanding of theological and philosophical questions, his appreciation for the ways in which ancient wisdom continues to illumine contemporary concerns, Around you, other conversations continue. Merchants evaluating goods, pilgrims sharing travel experiences, citizens conducting the daily business of Republican life. The piazza serves as Venice's great stage, the space where public and private intersect, where individual transactions contribute to the larger enterprise of urban civilization. Your book selling, like the spice trading and cloth selling that occurs simultaneously throughout the square, represents one thread in the complex tapestry of exchange that makes Venice prosperous and cosmopolitan, learned and commercially successful. A young woman, accompanied by an elderly servant who carries her books and writing materials, approaches with evident scholarly purpose. Her clothing, rich but not ostentatious, marks her as member of a patrician family, wealthy enough to provide daughters with serious education. In Venice, unlike many European cities, women of good family often receive instruction in Latin and mathematics, rhetoric and natural philosophy, recognition that intelligence serves the common good regardless of gender. Master Bookseller, she addresses you with the confidence of someone accustomed to intellectual discourse. I seek works that address questions of natural philosophy, particularly those that examine the properties of plants and their applications in medicine. My studies focus on the relationship between theoretical knowledge and practical healing. Her request reflects the growing interest in empirical observation that characterizes Renaissance scholarship, the movement away from reliance on ancient authorities alone toward approaches that value direct experience and systematic experimentation. Women, often excluded from university education but capable of pursuing private study, contribute significantly to this development through their work in households and communities where practical knowledge must yield concrete results. You show her a volume containing the botanical writings of Dioscorides, that Greek physician whose careful descriptions of medicinal plants remain valuable to healers throughout the Mediterranean world. The text, enhanced with marginal annotations by generations of readers, represents the accumulation of practical experience around a core of ancient wisdom, the living tradition that keeps knowledge alive through continuous application and refinement. Her examination of the volume, conducted with the systematic attention of someone trained in scholarly method, reveals both theoretical understanding and practical concern. Her questions about specific plants and their properties, about the relationship between different preparation methods and therapeutic effects, demonstrate the kind of engaged learning that transforms books from repositories of dead information into tools for living inquiry. This would complement my other studies beautifully, she concludes, her satisfaction evident in voice and expression. I maintain correspondence with other women who share interest in botanical medicine. We exchange observations and compare results, seeking to understand which traditional remedies deserve continued trust and which might benefit from modification or replacement. The transaction that follows, conducted with the same courtesy and precision that characterizes all your scholarly exchanges, represents more than simple commerce. It embodies the Renaissance ideal of learning as a cooperative enterprise, knowledge as a shared heritage that belongs to all humanity rather than any single tradition or institution. As the morning advances toward midday, the character of activity in the piazza begins to shift. Early buyers, those who rise before dawn to secure the best selections, give way to casual browsers and later risers. The quality of light changes too, from the soft, golden illumination of morning to the clearer, more direct radiance of approaching noon. Your satchel, lighter now after several successful sales, seems to move more easily with your walking rhythm. The remaining books, each one carefully selected for its scholarly value and physical quality, await readers who will appreciate their particular contributions to human understanding. Some may find homes with individual collectors, others with institutional libraries, still others with cooperative groups of students who understand that shared ownership often serves learning better than private possession. The merchant who purchased your Cicero returns, this time accompanied by a younger man whose bearing and dress suggest family relationship, perhaps a son or nephew being introduced to the world of serious book collecting. The older man's evident satisfaction with his earlier purchase, combined with his desire to share that satisfaction with family members, speaks to the ways in which intellectual appreciation passes from generation to generation, how scholarly values perpetuate themselves through example and instruction. My nephew, recently returned from studies in Paris, the merchant explains, shares our family's appreciation for classical learning. I thought he might benefit from examining your remaining volumes, perhaps finding something that serves his particular interests in mathematics and natural philosophy. The young man, his eyes bright with the enthusiasm of someone whose formal education has awakened rather than satisfied his intellectual curiosity, approaches your books with evident anticipation. His questions, precise and well-informed, reveal the kind of sophisticated understanding that university training at its best can provide. The ability to evaluate sources, compare authorities, recognize the significance of different approaches to enduring questions. Your conversation with him, conducted partly in Latin as befits scholarly discourse, ranges across questions of method and authority. The relationship between mathematical reasoning and physical observation, the ways in which different intellectual traditions contribute to comprehensive understanding. Around you, the sounds of the piazza create a peaceful backdrop. Voices engaged in commerce and conversation, footsteps on ancient stones, the distant music of church bells marking the passage O. The young scholar's appreciation for your books extends beyond their immediate content to their role in the larger enterprise of learning. The ways in which individual volumes contribute to libraries and collections, how particular insights combine to create comprehensive understanding, why the preservation and transmission of knowledge serves not only individual education, but also the common good of civilized society. As he examines a mathematical text containing recently translated works of Archimedes, his excitement becomes evident in quickened breathing and animated gestures. The volume, copied from Greek manuscripts preserved in Sicilian monasteries, makes available to Latin readers the geometric insights of antiquity's greatest mathematician, principles that serve both theoretical understanding and practical applications in engineering and architecture. As he examines a mathematical text containing recently translated works of Archimedes, his excitement becomes evident in quickened breathing and animated gestures. The volume, copied from Greek manuscripts preserved in Sicilian monasteries, makes available to Latin readers the geometric insights of antiquity's greatest mathematician, principles that serve both theoretical understanding and practical applications in engineering and architecture. "This represents exactly what I hoped to find," he declares, his voice carrying the satisfaction of someone whose search has been rewarded beyond expectation. "My studies in Paris introduced me to the new methods of mathematical analysis, but I have lacked access to the classical sources upon which such methods ultimately depend. This volume would allow me to trace modern innovations back to their ancient foundations." His appreciation for the continuity of learning, the ways in which contemporary scholarship builds upon inherited wisdom while extending understanding in new directions, reflects the best of Renaissance humanism. Rather than rejecting the past in favor of novelty, he seeks to understand tradition thoroughly enough to contribute meaningfully to its development, to add his own discoveries to the accumulated wisdom that will serve future generations. The transaction proceeds with mutual satisfaction, another book finding a worthy home, another mind gaining access to knowledge that will nourish lifelong learning. As you carefully wrap the Archimedes in its protective silk, you feel the deep contentment that comes from successful matchmaking between books and readers, from knowing that your labor contributes to the great human enterprise of intellectual development and cultural transmission. The sun reaches its zenith, flooding the piazza with clear, bright light that reveals every detail of architectural ornament and human activity. The basilica's mosaics glow with full brilliance, their gold backgrounds creating the effect of heavenly radiance brought to earth. Pilgrims and tourists, merchants and scholars, citizens and visitors, all move through this magnificent space, united in appreciation for beauty that serves both spiritual and secular purposes. Your morning's work in the piazza draws toward its close. Several books successfully matched with appreciative readers. Relationships established with patrons who may provide future opportunities for scholarly exchange. The experience reminds you why you chose this life, why you value the opportunity to travel from city to city, carrying knowledge to those who hunger for it, facilitating the connections between minds that make intellectual progress possible. As you prepare to continue your journey through Venice, exploring other neighborhoods where different kinds of readers might appreciate your remaining volumes, you pause for a moment to appreciate the scene around you. The Piazza San Marco, with its architectural magnificence and human vitality, represents everything that makes Venice unique. The marriage of East and West, sacred and secular, individual ambition and collective achievement that characterizes the world's most improbable and most beautiful city. Your breathing slows, becomes deeper and more rhythmic, matching the peaceful contentment that comes from meaningful work well done. The books remaining in your satchel seem lighter still, not because their physical weight has diminished, but because you have found your proper rhythm, your natural relationship to the burden and privilege of carrying knowledge through the world. The gentle warmth of the noon sun, the satisfied murmur of successful commerce, the visual feast of architectural beauty and human activity, all combine to create a sense of perfect harmony between inner purpose and outer circumstance. You exist fully in this moment, in this place, part of the eternal dance between seeking and finding, between those who preserve wisdom and those who hunger for it. Your eyelids grow pleasantly heavy, not with fatigue, but with the deep satisfaction that comes from contributing to something larger than yourself, from serving the cause of learning in a world that values both beauty and truth. The peaceful sounds of the piazza, voices in scholarly conversation, footsteps on ancient stone, the distant music of church bells blend into a gentle symphony that carries you toward peaceful rest. And in this perfect moment, surrounded by the magnificence of human achievement, carrying books full of ancient wisdom toward readers eager for understanding, you feel the profound contentment that comes from knowing your place in the great chain of learning that connects past to future, teacher to student, seeker to finder. You drift gently, peacefully, into dreams of knowledge shared and wisdom preserved, into the quiet satisfaction of meaningful work in the service of eternal human aspirations. The warm sunlight bathes your face, and the gentle murmur of scholarly conversation fades into peaceful silence as you rest deeply and contentedly in the heart of learning's greatest city. You sleep and dream of books finding their perfect readers, of wisdom flowing like water through grateful minds, of knowledge preserved and transmitted through the endless generosity of those who understand that truth belongs to all humanity. Chapter 4 Continuation. Conversations with Scribes and Authors Beneath the Church. Sister Benedetta approaches your remaining books with renewed interest, her botanical studies having awakened curiosity about other forms of natural knowledge. The afternoon light, now golden and slanted, casts warm patterns across the parchment pages as she examines a volume on astronomical observations, her fingers tracing star charts with the same careful attention she brings to mapping herb gardens. The heavens follow patterns as precise as any flower. She murmurs, her voice soft with wonder. If plants arrange themselves according to mathematical principles, perhaps the stars do likewise. Perhaps all creation follows harmonies we are only beginning to understand. In 40 years of copying, he reflects, his voice carrying the contentment of meaningful labor, I have come to see that knowledge lives not in individual books, but in the connections between them, the conversations they inspire, the questions they raise in minds prepared to receive them. His observation speaks to the deeper purpose that brings you to places like this scriptorium, the understanding that books serve their highest function not as static repositories, but as active participants in ongoing intellectual development. Each volume you carry, each conversation you facilitate, each connection you help forge between curious mind and illuminating text contributes to the great enterprise of human learning. The afternoon shadows lengthen across the stone floor, creating patterns that shift slowly with the moving sun. Through the stained glass windows, Venice's ordinary sounds filter into this sacred space of learning. The distant calls of gondoliers, the splash of oars in nearby canals, the gentle murmur of citizens conducting the business of daily life in the floating city. Brother Marco looks up from his medical copying, his young face bright with intellectual excitement. Master bookseller, he says, setting aside his quill with careful precision. These texts you carry represent more than preserved knowledge. They embody hope, the possibility that each generation might understand more than the last, might heal what could not be healed, might illuminate what remained dark. His words remind you of the deeper currents that flow beneath the surface of scholarly exchange, the human aspirations that drive the patient work of preservation and transmission, the faith that knowledge serves not merely intellectual curiosity, but also practical compassion, the healing of bodies and souls, the reduction of suffering through understanding. As the afternoon draws toward its close, the character of light in the scriptorium grows softer, more intimate, touched with the golden warmth that comes before evening. The conversations around your books begin to wind toward natural conclusions. Purchases made, connections established, new relationships formed between minds united by shared appreciation for learning. Your satchel, now significantly lighter, rests easily against your side. The remaining books, each one carefully preserved and thoughtfully selected, await the evening's possibilities. Readers who might appear as twilight brings different kinds of seekers into Venice's scholarly quarters. Collectors who browse by lamplight, students who study when day's other obligations release them. The young Paduan scholar, his acquisition of the mathematical texts secured, prepares to return to his lodgings where patient study awaits. This volume will serve not only my own research, he explains, his gratitude evident in voice and manner, but also my colleagues who share these interests. We have learned that knowledge multiplies when shared, that understanding deepens through discussion. His words echo the collaborative spirit that characterizes the best Renaissance learning, the recognition that intellectual development serves community rather than individual advancement, that scholarly achievement finds its highest expression in teaching and transmission rather than private accumulation. Sister Benedetta, her botanical interests satisfied by the Dioscorides, speaks of returning to her convent gardens where theoretical knowledge will meet practical application, where ancient descriptions will be tested against contemporary observations, where the patient work of cultivation will yield both herbal medicines and deeper understanding of natural processes. Knowledge lives when it serves life, she observes, her voice carrying the quiet wisdom of someone who has learned to balance contemplation with action, study with service, theoretical understanding with practical compassion. Her words capture something essential about the Renaissance spirit, the belief that learning must ultimately serve human welfare, must contribute to the healing of the world. The afternoon's conversations have created bonds that extend beyond immediate transactions, scholarly relationships that will continue through correspondence and future meetings, intellectual friendships that enrich the community of learning throughout Venice and beyond. Each connection represents a thread in the complex tapestry of Renaissance culture, the network of minds that makes possible the flowering of art and science, literature and philosophy, that characterizes this remarkable age. Brother Francesco, observing the satisfaction evident in all participants, reflects on the deeper patterns that such exchanges reveal. Books are like seeds, he muses, his voice soft with contemplative insight. They carry within themselves not only what they contain, but also what they might become. The thoughts they will inspire, the questions they will raise, the discoveries they will make possible. His metaphor captures the dynamic quality of knowledge, its capacity for growth and transformation, its ability to generate new understanding when it encounters fertile minds prepared to receive and extend it. The books you carry, each one containing centuries of accumulated wisdom, await readers who will give them new life, new purpose, new opportunities to serve human understanding. As the golden afternoon light begins its slow transition toward evening, as the sounds of Venice grow softer and more intimate, as the peaceful rhythms of scholarly work create their own gentle music in the ancient space beneath these weathered arches, you feel the deep satisfaction that comes from meaningful labor, from serving the cause of learning in a world that values both beauty and truth. The conversations gradually wind toward their natural conclusions. Final questions asked and answered. Arrangements made for future meetings. Addresses exchanged for scholarly correspondence. The practical details that ensure continuing connection between minds that have discovered common interests and complementary expertise. Your breathing grows slower, deeper, more rhythmic, matching the peaceful atmosphere that evening brings to spaces dedicated to learning and contemplation. The scriptorium, with its gentle sounds of scholarly labor, its warm light filtering through colored glass, its sense of connection to centuries of patient work in service of knowledge, embodies everything you value most deeply about the life of learning. The books remaining in your satchel seem to pulse gently with anticipation, as if they too sense the approaching transition from day to evening, from one phase of your journey to the next, from the scholarly conversations of afternoon to whatever possibilities the twilight hours might bring. In this city where learning and commerce, sacred and secular, ancient wisdom and contemporary innovation blend in ways found nowhere else on earth. Your eyelids grow pleasantly heavy, not with fatigue, but with the deep contentment that comes from participating in something larger than yourself, from serving purposes that transcend individual gain, from contributing to the great human enterprise of preserving and transmitting the accumulated wisdom of ages. The gentle sounds of the scriptorium, scribes completing their daily work, pages turning softly, quills being cleaned and stored, conversations concluding with mutual respect and scholarly appreciation, create a peaceful symphony that carries you toward the threshold between day and evening, between the known accomplishments of afternoon and the mysterious possibilities that await in the gathering dusk. Chapter 5. Evening Reflections by the Grand Canal. The evening bells of Venice, bronze voices calling across water and stone, draw you gently from the peaceful sanctuary of the scriptorium into the amber twilight that transforms the floating city into a realm of golden dreams. Your footsteps, soft and measured, carry you through narrow calli that lead toward the Grand Canal, that magnificent waterway where Venice displays her greatest treasures in the gentle light that comes before night. Your satchel, lighter now, but still containing precious volumes that await their destined readers, moves easily with your contemplative pace. The books within, each one a repository of human wisdom, carefully preserved across centuries, seem to pulse gently with the rhythm of your walking, as if they too appreciate this moment of transition, this pause between the scholarly intensity of afternoon and the quiet reflection that evening encourages. The character of Venice changes as daylight softens into dusk. The harsh edges of midday commerce give way to gentler rhythms. The urgent business of morning markets transforms into the leisurely conversations of citizens who have earned their rest through honest labor. Window boxes release the accumulated fragrance of herbs warmed by the day's sun. Basil and rosemary, thyme and mint, their scents mixing with the salt tang of the lagoon to create perfumes that speak of both earth and sea, cultivation and wilderness, human care and natural abundance. You emerge onto the Riva del Vin, that broad fondamenta that borders the Grand Canal, where merchants once unloaded casks of wine from mainland vineyards. The great waterway, Venice's liquid main street, stretches before you in all its evening splendor, palazzo facades glowing rose and gold in the slanted light, their marble surfaces warm as human skin, their Gothic arches and Byzantine decorations creating a symphony of architectural beauty that has no equal anywhere on earth. The water itself, usually dark and mysterious in full daylight, now reflects the warm colors of sky and buildings, creating a liquid mirror that doubles Venice's beauty, that makes the city seem to float not only on the lagoon, but also on dreams made manifest, on human aspirations given form in stone and glass, bronze and wood, all the materials that patient craftsmen have transformed into lasting expressions of civic pride and artistic achievement. Gondolas move past like graceful birds, their black hulls cutting silently through the reflected light, their occupants enjoying the peaceful privacy that evening brings to Venice's watery streets. The gondoliers, masters of their ancient craft, navigate by memory and instinct through channels they have known since boyhood, their long oars creating rhythmic splashes that form part of Venice's eternal music, the liquid percussion that accompanies all life in this impossible city. You settle onto a stone bench that faces the canal, one of the simple seats provided for citizens who wish to pause in their daily journeys, to rest their bodies while feeding their souls on beauty that never grows familiar, never loses its power to inspire wonder and gratitude. The stone, worn smooth by countless sitters, still holds warmth from the day's sun, a gentle heat that speaks of the patience required to create lasting beauty, the accumulated effort of generations who understood that their individual contributions served purposes larger than personal gain. Your books rest safely in their silk wrappings as you watch the evening traffic on the canal. A cargo boat passes, loaded with firewood from the mainland forests, its burden destined for Venetian hearths that will warm families through the cool nights when autumn mist rises from the lagoon. The boatman, his weathered hands steady on the oars, continues traditions that stretch back to Venice's earliest days, when survival depended on maintaining connections between the scattered islands and the fertile mainland that provided everything the city could not produce for herself. Another vessel carries amphoras of wine, their clay surfaces gleaming dully in the golden light. Their contents, pressed from grapes that grew on hillsides where Roman poets once walked, where medieval monks preserved both viticultural knowledge and literary traditions through centuries of change and upheaval. The wine will grace Venetian tables, will celebrate business agreements and family occasions, will provide the social lubrication that makes possible the complex negotiations required in a city where merchants from distant lands must learn to trust and cooperate despite differences of language and custom. A third boat, this one elegant with brass fittings and cushioned seats, carries a family returning from visits to relatives on other islands. Children peer over the sides with the fearless curiosity of those born to Venice's watery environment, while their parents discuss the day's events with the satisfaction of people who have maintained the social connections that bind the city's scattered communities into a unified whole. Their clothing, rich but not ostentatious, marks them as members of the citizen class, those families whose commercial success supports Venice's prosperity while their civic participation maintains her republican traditions. The palazzo across the canal, its facade a masterpiece of Gothic proportion and decoration, glows rose pink in the evening light. The marble came from quarries in Istria, across the Adriatic Sea, where Roman emperors once sought stone for their monuments. The carving was done by craftsmen who learned their art from fathers and grandfathers, who understood that beauty must be built to last, who created decorations that please the eye while serving the practical purpose of shedding rainwater away from the building's foundation. The palazzo's water entrance, marked by striped mooring poles that catch the light like candy canes, speaks of the days when merchant princes conducted business directly from their boats, when the line between water and architecture was beautifully blurred, when Venice's unique geography shaped every aspect of daily life. Even now, as evening shadows begin to gather in the palace's arcades, you can imagine the ghosts of long-dead merchants, their descendants, their business partners, all participating in the ongoing enterprise of commercial civilization that makes Venice possible. Your breathing slows to match the peaceful rhythm of water lapping against stone foundations. Each breath brings new awareness of the miraculous balance that keeps Venice alive. The delicate equilibrium between human ambition and natural forces, between individual enterprise and collective cooperation, between preservation of ancient traditions and adaptation to changing circumstances. The city exists in constant tension between permanence and flux, like the books you carry, which preserve ancient wisdom while serving contemporary needs. One volume in your satchel, still awaiting its perfect reader, contains the philosophical writings of Marcus Aurelius, that Roman emperor whose meditations on duty and mortality continue to speak to thoughtful minds across the centuries. His understanding of life's brevity and beauty, his appreciation for the small moments that give meaning to existence, resonates with the peaceful contemplation that evening encourages, the recognition that true wealth lies not in possessions, but in awareness, in the capacity to appreciate the present moment while remaining conscious of connection to the vast sweep of human experience. Another book holds the poetry of Virgil, that Roman master whose Georgics celebrate agricultural labor, while his Aeneid explores the costs and glories of building civilization in a world where nothing lasts forever. His verses, copied by countless scribes, translated into numerous languages, adapted to serve different cultures and historical moments, demonstrate the power of words to transcend their original context, to find new life and meaning in circumstances their author could never have imagined. A third volume, particularly precious in this peaceful moment, contains the Confessions of Saint Augustine, that North African bishop whose spiritual autobiography continues to illuminate the human struggle between worldly ambition and transcendent purpose. His honest examination of his own motives and desires, his understanding of the ways in which temporal concerns can both serve and obscure eternal values, speaks directly to the tensions that characterize Venetian life, the challenge of pursuing commercial success while maintaining spiritual integrity. The light continues to soften and deepen, transforming the Grand Canal into a river of liquid gold that carries reflections of palace and church, bridge and boat, all the elements that make Venice unique among the cities of the world. The water itself, brackish mixture of fresh and salt, embodies the city's position between different worlds, between mainland and sea, between familiar and exotic, between the known traditions of European civilization and the mysterious possibilities that lie beyond the horizon. A merchant galley appears around the bend of the canal, her sails furled, her long oars propelling her toward the commercial heart of the city. The vessel, built in the arsenal according to specifications perfected over centuries of trial and refinement, carries cargo from distant ports, spices from India, silk from China, gold from Africa, all the exotic goods that make Venice wealthy while connecting her citizens to the wider world of Mediterranean and Asian commerce. The galley's crew, men from various nations united by common participation in the great enterprise of maritime trade, prepare to moor their vessel at one of the commercial fondamenti where cargo will be unloaded and stored, evaluated and distributed, transformed from exotic curiosity into familiar commodity through the patient work of merchants who understand that profit comes from bringing together those who have much of what they do not need with those who need much of what they do not have. Your position on the bench provides perfect perspective for observing this eternal dance of commerce and culture. The ways in which individual transactions contribute to larger patterns of exchange that enrich all participants, that make possible the flowering of art and learning that characterizes Venice's golden age. Each boat that passes, each cargo that changes hands, each conversation between merchants from different lands adds another thread to the complex tapestry of international trade that supports not only material prosperity, but also intellectual and cultural development. The evening bells continue their bronze conversation across the city, different churches calling their faithful to vespers, marking the transition from day to night with voices that have rung across these waters for centuries. The sound carries differently in the cooling air, travels farther over water than over land, creates a web of acoustic connection that unites Venice's scattered islands into a unified acoustic space, a city that exists as much in sound as in stone, as much in rhythm as in architecture. As you sit in peaceful contemplation, watching the evening light transform ordinary scenes into moments of transcendent beauty, you reflect on the day's accomplishments, the books that found appropriate readers, the conversations that enriched all participants, the connections established between minds united by appreciation for learning and wisdom. Each transaction represented more than simple commerce. Each exchange embodied the Renaissance understanding that knowledge serves its highest purpose when it flows freely between those who preserve and those who seek, between teachers and students, between past insights and contemporary applications. The remaining books in your satchel, their silk wrappings warm from your body heat, seem to pulse gently with anticipation of future encounters, readers not yet met, conversations not yet begun, insights not yet shared. Like seeds waiting for proper soil and season, they carry within themselves not only their preserved content, but also their potential for growth, for inspiring new thoughts, for raising fresh questions, for serving needs not yet recognized by minds not yet prepared to receive them. A young couple walks past, arm in arm, their quiet conversation and gentle laughter speaking of love that has found secure harbor in marriage sanctified by both church and state, by both spiritual commitment and social recognition. Their clothing, modest but well-made, suggests artisan background, perhaps a goldsmith and his wife, or a glassmaker from Murano with his beloved. People whose skilled labor contributes to Venice's reputation for creating objects that combine beauty with utility, form with function, artistic achievement with commercial success. They pause at the canal's edge, watching the light play on the water, appreciating beauty that costs nothing but awareness, that enriches without depleting, that belongs equally to all who take time to notice. Their presence reminds you that the ultimate purpose of all human enterprise, commerce and scholarship alike, is to create conditions within which love can flourish, within which beauty can be appreciated, within which the miracle of consciousness can recognize itself in the endless dance of light and shadow, permanence and change, individual aspiration and collective achievement. An elderly fisherman appears in a small boat, his nets gleaming with the day's catch, silver fish that will feed Venetian families while continuing traditions that stretch back to the city's earliest settlers. His weathered face, marked by decades of patient labor under sun and stars, radiates the quiet satisfaction of someone who has found his proper place in the world's work, who understands that honest labor serves purposes larger than individual gain, who participates willingly in the ancient covenant between human need and natural abundance. He nods respectfully as he passes, recognizing in your bearing and dress a fellow citizen of the Republic, someone who contributes to the common good through his own form of patient labor, who serves the cause of learning just as the fisherman serves the cause of nourishment, who participates in the great enterprise of urban civilization that makes possible this impossible city built on water and sustained by dreams made manifest in stone and wood, bronze and glass, all the materials that human skill and vision have transformed into lasting expressions of what mortals can achieve when they work together toward common purposes. The light grows softer still, taking on the rose and gold tones that photographers and painters will later seek to capture, that poets will attempt to describe in words that can never quite convey the full impact of beauty experienced in its proper moment and setting. The palazzo facades across the canal seemed to glow from within, as if the marble itself had learned to hold and reflect not only sunlight, but also the accumulated love and pride of generations who built and maintained these monuments to human aspiration and architectural achievement. Your breathing deepens into the slower rhythm that evening naturally encourages. The transition from the active engagement of daylight hours to the contemplative appreciation that comes with approaching twilight. The peaceful sounds of Venice at rest. Water lapping against stone, distant conversations in various languages, the gentle splash of oars, the soft creaking of moored boats, all combine to create a symphony of urban peace that speaks to the soul as clearly as any written philosophy, any preserved poetry, any accumulated wisdom contained in the books that rest safely in your lap. The first stars begin to appear in the darkening sky. Those ancient lights that guided Venice's merchant ships across unknown seas, that helped navigators find their way home to this impossible city built on faith and maintained by the patient cooperation of citizens who understood that individual success and collective welfare were not competing, but complementary values. That personal achievement served its highest purpose when it contributed to the common good of the whole community. As full darkness approaches, as the evening transformation of Venice nears its completion, as the working city gives way to the dreaming city, you rise slowly from your stone bench, gathering your precious books, preparing to continue your journey through streets that grow more mysterious and beautiful with each passing hour. The day's work has been good work, meaningful labor that served purposes larger than immediate gain, that contributed to the great human enterprise of preserving and transmitting the accumulated wisdom of ages. Your footsteps, soft on worn stone, carry you deeper into the evening city, deeper into the maze of narrow passages and hidden campos where different kinds of readers might be found. Scholars who study by lamplight, collectors who browse after sunset, students released from daily obligations, all the seekers and preservers who make possible the flowering of culture that characterizes Venice's remarkable age. The books remaining in your satchel seem lighter with each step, not because their physical weight has diminished, but because you have found perfect harmony between purpose and circumstance, between the treasure you carry and the city that provides infinite opportunities for sharing wisdom with minds prepared to receive it. Like the gondoliers who navigate by memory through channels they have known since childhood, you move with the confidence that comes from understanding your proper place in the world's work. Your breathing slows further, deeper, more peaceful, matching the quiet rhythm of Venice at rest. The gentle pulse of a city that dreams of tomorrow while honoring yesterday, that builds continuously upon its accumulated achievements while remaining open to new possibilities, new connections, new discoveries that will enrich future generations, just as past generations have enriched the present moment. The warm evening air, soft as silk against your skin, carries scents that speak of both permanence and change. Ancient stones and fresh bread, salt water and flowering herbs, the accumulated aromas of a city where East meets West, where tradition embraces innovation, where individual dreams serve collective aspirations, where books find readers and wisdom flows freely between all who value learning above mere possession. Your eyelids grow pleasantly heavy, not with fatigue, but with the deep satisfaction that comes from meaningful work completed, from knowledge shared and preserved, from participating in the eternal human enterprise that connects each generation to those that came before and those that will follow. The gentle sounds of evening Venice, water and stone, voices and footsteps, the distant music of bells and boats, create a peaceful lullaby that carries you toward perfect rest. And in this moment of perfect harmony between inner purpose and outer circumstance, between the wisdom you carry and the city that provides infinite opportunities for sharing it, you feel the profound contentment that comes from knowing your place in the great chain of learning, from serving something larger than yourself, from contributing to the preservation and transmission of human wisdom that makes civilization itself possible. The evening mist begins to rise from the lagoon, soft and gentle as a lover's caress, wrapping Venice in veils of silver mystery, transforming the floating city into a realm of dreams where anything is possible, where books find their perfect readers, where wisdom flows like water through grateful minds, where the accumulated treasures of human thought serve their highest purpose in the endless dance between those who preserve and those who seek, between knowledge offered and understanding received, between the eternal questions and the patient search for answers that makes life meaningful. You drift peacefully into the gentle Venetian night, your precious books secure, your purpose clear, your place in the great enterprise of learning confirmed, surrounded by beauty that speaks to the soul, carried by currents of meaning that connect all human striving, resting in the profound peace that comes from serving truth with love, from preserving wisdom with dedication, from sharing knowledge with generosity. The city dreams around you, and you dream with her, of books and readers, of wisdom preserved and transmitted, of learning that flows like light across the darkness of ignorance, connecting mind to mind, heart to heart, generation to generation, in the eternal human quest for understanding, for beauty, for truth, for the perfect harmony that comes when knowledge serves love and wisdom serves life. And the gentle waters of Venice carry you softly into sleep, into dreams of perfect books finding perfect readers, of wisdom flowing freely through willing minds, of knowledge preserved and transmitted through the endless generosity of those who understand that truth belongs to all humanity, that learning serves its highest purpose when it enriches not the few, but the many, not the present, but the eternal, not the individual, but the collective soul of humans striving toward light.